Welcome to Speed in Color, a podcast and YouTube channel about custom motorcycle culture. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to get all the latest content. You can also follow Speed in Color on Instagram. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hi there, how you doing? Little bit different episode here today. Gonna do something a bit different. I don't have a guest with me, but the topic for this episode is this XS650 that I'm building, hopefully for the Bad Livin Roadshow. I think we can make it. It's going to be a push. Bad Livin Roadshow is in July in Durham, Ontario. Going to ship this bike down. I'm not going to trailer this time. This year we're going to ship it. So I need to be done, in June sometime. It's going to be a bit of a stretch, but the Bad Livin Roadshow is worth it. And we made some big progress. When I say we, I do have a helper. Alfred is a good friend, a great friend, and he's here most weekends and some evenings to help me out. And, for quite a while there, we were dealing with a frame and we were dealing with all kinds of stuff. And it just seems that in the last week or two, this has really started to come together. So what I want to talk to you about is I need some help to figure out what to do on some of this stuff. So I'm hoping I can get your input, whether you're experienced with XS650s, experienced with choppers, you have some ideas, or even if you're a new guy like me and you just want to say, hey, have you thought about doing this? I'm fine with that. I would just appreciate the input. So we're going to cover a few topics here. We'll talk about a few different things, some options that I have, and you can give me your opinion, and I'm going to consider all the feedback I get and think about this and figure out what I need to do. A little bit of history on this. There was a shop in Calgary that was going out of business, and the owner just wanted to get money and get out of the business. They had some XS650 parts laying around, so I said, you know what, I'd like to build one of those. What do you got? Well, I wound up leaving there with 3 frames, 4 engines, some odds and sods, and this chrome Springer front end. Part of the reason I tell you that is, if you're thinking, oh, I'd like to build a bike, but, they're expensive, I don't know where to get one, whatever. Go to the swap meets, go to the shops, make yourself known, talk around, ask people. You'll be shocked at who calls you up and says, hey, my grandfather's got this in the garage. It's been under boxes and a tarp or whatever. You'll find all kinds of stuff out there. A lot of it's been found, granted, but there's still lots of stuff out there for somebody who wants to get into this and give it a try. So that's my advice, is if you want to build a chopper, you want to build a cafe racer, just get out there and look for stuff and see what people tell you. There's lots of stuff out there. So that's where a lot of these parts came from. What I've done on this build, this is, I believe, a 1980 frame. I've checked the title on this. The title is clean. We're good. No problem that way. So what we did, we cut the back of the frame off to put the S&S hardtail kit on. And what you wind up with, and I should have some pictures here that I can show, what you wind up with is the front part of the frame, including the full backbone almost down to the bottom. The hardtail is this whole rear piece that supports the seat, the back wheel, and runs up and joins the bottom rails, bottom tubes of the original frame. So it's it may seem like a big project. It's really not that bad if you follow instructions. There's lots of YouTube stuff on it. TC Bros has good instructions on their website. for how to install their kit. And a lot of them are pretty similar and tie into the same sort of places. So I cut this frame up, sanded it down, ground the welds, got rid of a bunch of gussets that I really didn't like on the Yamaha frame, on the original frame. Some people are going to tell me, oh, you took a lot of strength out of that front end. You know, I've checked with Tim, the fabricator over at PFX, and we've looked at this and figured it out. The stress points. There's a nice gusset down at the bottom here that I've left. There's really no reason on a bike of this weight and this power range that this front end, this neck won't work just fine. I think we're going to have lots of strength up there. So we're going to go with that. At the back here, you know, I got that front part of the frame ready. Then we got the kit. It lined up really well. We had to do a little bit of jockeying and grinding pieces, but, you know, everything came together real nice. It fit in. We've checked it for straightness, side to side, cross measured, all that stuff. The axle is straight to the front axle. Everything is good. The angles are right. You know, tying into an original frame, this Yamaha frame, I'll be honest with you, these bottom rails, and I'm talking about these down here, these bottom rails are not straight. It'd be really nice if motorcycle manufacturers built things straight with future choppers in mind, but they don't build like that. So those bottom rails right from the factory have a couple very gentle bends in them that make it a little bit awkward, but it worked out okay. The hardtail from SNS, absolutely beautiful. An absolute shame that Sean isn't building these right now. I'm really hoping that he's going to be back in the motorcycle business someday, but I know he's got a contract he's working on right now, and he just can't take time to do this stuff. So that's okay. I got one of the last ones. Actually, I think this was either the last one or the second last one that came out of his shop. And it's a beautiful piece. We went with a 3/4 inch axle rather than the 20 mil axle. Reason for that is, you know, 20 mil metric. Yeah, okay, it's nice to keep the whole bike metric. It's really tough to keep the whole bike metric. But by going with a 3/4 axle, there's a lot more selection because that's a standard Harley size. So for wheels, we had all kinds of options, and of course brakes and everything. There's just a lot more available for that 3/4 inch axle. This Springer front end that came in that deal from that shop going out of business, man, it's a nice piece. I always thought it was kind of short, but when I got it on here, I found out, wow, that's a little bit longer than I thought it was. So it has worked out just fine. Conversion pieces, bearings and stuff, all available from TC Bros. This front end, I was told it's a DNA. Mid USA built something very similar. I think a lot of the Springer front end builders were using similar stuff. So anyway, the yoke here, all the bearings, the kit from TC Bros worked out just fine. The axle is just fine, and away we go. So that's the basics of what we started with the frame and the hardtail kit. And now I'm going to talk to you about some of the things I've done, and I'm going to get your opinion on some things. So we'll move ahead here in just a minute. I just got to do a couple things. All right. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the engine here. Couple things I want to talk about. So this engine, what I did, because I got 4 engines, is one had a problem. It was missing one of the studs that holds the cylinders and the head down. They're really long. Turned out they were exceptionally tough to find, and I thought, oh man, what am I going to do? And then I got this idea that putting the frame together anyway, it would be nice to have a mock-up engine or a hollow engine, a light engine that I could bolt into the frame, get everything in place, weld around it, not worried about this particular engine. I have all the parts to put it together, so it could get used down the road. But, you know, the cases aren't perfect. There's a lot of stuff that isn't perfect about this one. So I thought, you know what, I'll put that together. But what we did is we stripped all the guts out of it. So there's no crank in it. There's no gears. There's nothing. We took everything out that we could to lighten it up. And you can lift this engine now, just, you know, one guy, easy deal. Set it in place, bolt it in, no problem. So we made this mock-up engine. And that's worked out really well. And we'll be able to set up the exhaust system. We'll be able to do all kinds of stuff with this hollow engine, if you will. I want to modify some of the cases and stuff a little bit anyway. So that's what we did to make sure that we got all the mounting points right. And speaking of mounting points, one thing I did on this, and you can see on this side of the bike, is there's no mount left down at the bottom. Yamaha put a mount on either side with a long bolt through a couple ears on the bottom of the cases of the engine. Again, I don't know where you get one of those bottom mounting bolts. I didn't get any with the stuff that I bought from Lucid when they were going out of business. So I didn't have the bolt. I wasn't sure what I was going to do there. I looked at the mounts that Yamaha welded on the frame. They're big. They're, to me, not to offend anybody, they're big, they're ugly. I didn't like them. They didn't fit with what I was trying to do with the bike. And I thought, okay, maybe there's a better way to do this. So I cut those mounts off, and interesting thing, Yamaha welds them on either side. The problem with that is there's a gap at either end between the mount and the frame. Over the years, there had been oil and sand and who knows what got under there. Obviously water, lots of stuff like that. And there was not enough corrosion to cause a structural problem with the tubes yet, thank goodness. But certainly there was corrosion under there on those bottom frame tubes. Was it a good idea I got in there? Maybe. Good thing I cut them off. But I did. I cut those off so those bottom frame rails would be nice and smooth. What I discovered is probably why Yamaha put those mounts where they did is right below that mount, there's a bit of a bend in the frame. And it's not one of the nicer bends they did. It's almost a little kink that they must have put in there for that bottom bolt. Now, I'm not sure why the engineers came up with that, but anyway, it's not great. So what I'm going to do, I've already drilled that bottom frame rail on both sides for a couple of bungs, and I machined down for this test one. I machined down a piece of aluminum. It's about 10 inches wide, about 0.4 of an inch. So I machined that down over a proto space, made that rod, slipped it in there. It worked great with the stock mounts. So now I'm going to take that, I'm going to modify the design of that, and I'm going to make new aluminum mounts that bolt onto the frame. And it's kind of hard to describe. You guys will just have to stick with me. But basically, I'm making a triangular shaped plate that can be polished, look good down there, with a chrome fastener into that rod that goes from side to side. I can drill both ends, tap it. It'll be really nice. it'll do the same thing as the factory stuff did, but rather than being steel, a piece of threaded rod would work. The problem with threaded rod is you've got all the tops of the threads digging into the aluminum all the time, plus catching dirt, trapping dirt, all that kind of stuff. So I think a smooth machined aluminum rod that slides through there, be strong enough to do the job. I don't think it even really needs to be there because there's enough other mounting points. That engine isn't going anywhere. It's absolutely fine. But I'm going to put that bottom mount back in. The top mount, and I've gone with Hughes hand-built mount kit. He makes really, really nice mounting stuff here. So we've put that on. It's really, really good. The top mount, this is another piece that a lot of guys do away with. Jeff at Perth County Moto, he doesn't run a top mount on his engine. And he said that, when he did the research, there were a lot of guys who had done away with it. So I thought about doing away with it, but I had this piece from Hughes, and I like this open window, and it just kind of fills in the top of the engine. Without this, I like the gap, but it kind of looked bare too. So by putting this is the mount I'm talking about. By putting this mount back on the top of the engine, I'm only going to tie the rear bolt to the frame. Just a very simple piece of tube to the frame, super simple. That will be as strong as, or close to as strong as the big gaudy piece that Yamaha welded to the frame to hold the engine. So that'll be a nice addition there. It'll clean it up. Everything will look good. I think we'll be just fine that way. So that's what I'm doing for engine mounts. The other thing I want to talk to you about regarding engines is, it seems a lot of guys don't know this. And if you're an XS650 guy and you're watching this and you say, everybody knows that. Well, it turns out that not everybody knows this. I was looking, I have a head that doesn't have a rocker box cover. And I was looking for a rocker box cover, and I discovered that these things are numbered. So in this case, if you look at this one, the rocker box cover looks like it's a B137, and the head looks like it's a Z516. These numbers matched originally. This is a mismatched set. What's the significance of that? Most likely, you're not going to run into any kind of a problem with the cam or anything. The machining would be good enough. But if the numbers are matching, that means that these two pieces were machined together at the factory. Everyone has a unique number. Every pair has a unique number. And over time, what has happened is that people have, for whatever reasons, separated the head and the rocker box cover. A lot of guys sell them on eBay and other places. So they get sold separately, and it separates the pair. What are the problems with that? From what I've read on the internet, you could experience some leakage. Oil leaks, it causes gasket problems. It doesn't seem to cause, I couldn't find anywhere where anybody said, the cam was bound up or anything like that because these were mismatched. But certainly there were reports of oil leaks and different things, and guys attributed that to the mismatched numbers. So if you're building one of these, one thing you want to look at and consider is If the number on the rocker box doesn't match the number on the head, these were not machined together originally. On this particular engine, these do not match. The other 3 engines I have, all the numbers match. So I know that rocker box was at the factory machined with that head. I've read in places too, guys have suggested that it would be nice if there was a database, whatever. Luckily, my friend Alfred is a software guy. He's a computer guy, and he has volunteered that he would help us out with a database. So this nothing. This isn't going to be anything really official or anything like that. It's not going to be an app. I'm not going to sell it. I just want to help people out with these. So if you have a situation where your numbers are mismatched and you're looking for the original piece that went with yours, what you can do, we'll start this very modestly. Send me the information. Send me your, I don't know, let me know how I can get a hold of you. And send me the numbers that you have for your rocker box and your head. Alfred has volunteered to start a database for us, so he'll get this stuff entered, and we'll see if we can't find some orphans a home here, and get these things back together. In saying that, I'm going to tell you that chances are, if you're in Alberta, you're not going to find the other part in Japan or in Europe. It probably didn't travel that far. I think we're going to find there's a real good chance that if you're in southwestern Ontario and you're looking for a specific number, just a gut feel, I would almost bet that thing's within 100-mile radius of you. I don't think these things traveled very far away. Now with eBay, some may have got shipped a little bit further than that, but I don't think they're going to be that far away, and it would be cool to start that database and see if we can't get some of the rocker box head combinations back together. That's what I'm offering to do. There's no charge for it. There's no issue. Leave me a comment. Go to my Instagram account, at speed and A&D color with a K and no U. No U. Anyway, send me a note, send me a DM, leave a comment, tell me what numbers you have, and we'll get them entered, and we'll see if we can't get some of this back together. That is my spiel about the engine. Next, we'll move on to, maybe we'll move on to wheels and something else here, but yeah, let me get adjusted and we'll go again. All right. I may have told you an untruth. We're not going to talk about wheels yet. Seeing how we're talking about engine, I want to talk about electronics. And it's my show, so I'll talk about whatever I want to talk about. So, electronics-wise, here's where I need your help. And especially if you have experience with this, I would love to hear what guided your decision. The situation I have is I'm trying to figure out what to do electronics wise, and this is kind of an old school look. That's cool. I like old school, but I don't necessarily have to have old school technology. There's a lot of new technology that is really, really good, like lithium batteries, like moto gadgets, stuff like that. Switches and lights and all kinds of cool stuff. So with this, I've kind of figured out that I have 3 different ways I can go electronics and ignition wise. And because I got to buy components anyway, it all comes out pretty close to the same deal. The first option I have is to go with a magneto. Magneto's a lot of money for an XS650. It's big money. But if I go with a magneto, I eliminate a battery because I can run a capacitor as long as I have a permanent magnet alternator or charging system, which when I took one of the 4 engines that I got apart, it had a Hughes hand-built permanent magnet charging system on it, which was a real bonus because nobody knew that was there because nobody had taken the time to take the cover off. So I have that. I don't have to spend the money on that. Let me grab this. I have the capacitor. When Lucid was going out of business and sold me all these parts, the owner said, oh yeah, and I got this too. It's a capacitor for Yamaha XS650. So there's the capacitor. So I don't need the charging system. I don't need the capacitor. What the capacitor does, my understanding, and please feel free to correct me or help me to understand this better. This essentially becomes an energy storage device. It's not a battery, but it's an energy storage device. The charging system keeps the capacitor charged. Your lights, which would be minimal if you're running one of these, are going to stay on with your capacitor. You're running kicker only, no starter motor, no electric start when you're doing this, when you're running one of these. The magneto, no problem. That ignition, magnetos are self-powered, if you will. They make their own juice. So you eliminate a lot of components, but my thinking is, if you're going to run the charging system and a capacitor, you're not running a moto gadget. If anybody has run a moto gadget with a capacitor, boy, I'd love to hear how that worked out. And if it worked out well, I'd love to hear it even more. No moto gadget. Your lights are going to be very rudimentary. At idle, they're most likely going to dim. It's going to be old school for sure. So magneto, charging system, capacitor is one option I have for the electronics. The next option would be to go to an electronic ignition. And here's part of the problem with what I bought. I did get 4 engines. I got no points plates and no points. So I have no ignition system, no factory ignition system. And it bolts onto the side of the motor, the side of the head, and I don't have it. So I've done a little bit of looking. It appears that the points mounting plate, the points won't be a problem to get, but the points mounting plate appears to be an issue. Easy solution, electronic ignition. Several available, no big deal. Probably a better way to go anyway. So I could go with an electronic ignition, and I believe with that, I could still go with the permanent magnet charging system and the capacitor. All the same limitations with the capacitor, and the electronic ignition, from what I understand, should work just fine. Okay? Not a bad way to go. The third option, and I'll be honest with you, this is the one I'm leaning towards. The third option is to go with an anti-gravity lithium battery. And I'll give you a heads up. Stay tuned to Speed and Color because I'm working on an episode about lithium batteries. I'm not going to go into a lot of details right now, but there's a lot of there's a lot of misunderstandings that we need to clear up about lithium batteries. There's a lot of misunderstandings about naming and the kinds of lithium batteries that are available. There's just a whole bunch of stuff. I've been digging into it. We need to sort that out, because I believe lithium batteries are killer. That's the way to go. No doubt about it. But I think a lot of builders, especially amateur builders, need some knowledge about those batteries and maybe some confidence to go ahead and use them. Back to the third option. The third option would be to run charging system. Again, I would probably use that good system I've got anyway. I wouldn't have to. The caveat to that is, if you are going to run a factory charging system, you want to make sure that your regulator is electronic, not an old mechanical style. Old mechanical style regulators and lithium batteries are not a good idea, and that's some of what I'm going to talk about in the episode I got coming up, so I don't want to go into a lot of detail. Suffice to say, not a great idea. So as long as you update the regulator, lithium battery's fine. But I do have that good charging system. It's an electronic regulator. Everything would be good. So I can run that charging system with a very small lithium ion battery. Well, I just made another mistake. Not lithium ion. Let's just say lithium for now. So a lithium battery. The one I've looked at is, I'm trying to remember here, 4 3/8 wide, 3.75 inches tall, and 2.5 inches thick. There's also one that is 1.5 inches thick, or actually less. I think it's 1 3/8. And I've tested, Alfred and I made up a couple foam blocks here in the sizes of the batteries and tried slipping them underneath. And right under here, there's enough room for either of those batteries. And Anti-Gravity Batteries also has a super cool aluminum mount that will fit down there as well to mount that battery. So I would have a lithium battery under the engine, out of the way. Charging system, Hughes hand built, real nice. Electronic ignition, standard, no problem. No capacitor, because we're using a battery instead of a capacitor, so we have a lot more storage. The lights aren't going to dim, all of that kind of stuff. And a Moto Gadget. And I think I can hide the Moto Gadget in one of two places. I can hide it under the seat here, because part of my plan on the seat is to have it upholstered with fringe on this outside edge. The fringe would hide the Moto Gadget tucked underneath there. The wiring will go into the backbone and be hidden inside the frame. The other place I can mount the Moto Gadget is, my plan with the fender here is to put a pillion here, and I could build that so that the Moto Gadget was actually in the pillion seat. I really like that idea, because then you can hide the wiring on the back side of the fender, bring it down, feed it into a tube, do all kinds of stuff. I really like that idea. Anyway, that would be the third option, is to go full bore, current technology, Yahoo, LED turn signals, all that stuff with the Moto Gadget. I am a huge Moto Gadget fan. I used one on my Sportster. That thing is so simple, so good, and they are built so well. They're super tough. Boy, I would like to know how you screw one of those things up, because Alfred and I sure didn't do it, and just really good technology. So those are the three options, and I want to hear from you. If you've done electronics on an XS650, which way did you go? What did you do? Even if you haven't done it on an XS650 and you've done it on a Sportster or a shovel head, or I don't care, I want to know what your experience is with magnetos and you know, current systems. And I'd kind of like to know, which way would you go? And I may not go your way. Don't misunderstand. Hopefully I'm going to get lots of feedback, and I am ultimately going to make my own decision. But those are the three options. I'd love to hear from you. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think. Okay, we'll move on in just a minute here. All right. Two more things I need your help with. Seat first. We'll talk about this first. So this seat I got from S&S Customs. Sean had this for another customer who wound up not taking it. And he said, you know, this would work really well on your XS650. And I had to change the mount a little bit here, and I've done that, and we got to do some welding and stuff. I'm pretty happy with the seat. I think it's going to be just fine. Here's my dilemma. Do I run barrel springs or do I run hairpins? Now, I kind of like the idea of the hairpins, especially if I'm going to do fringe on this seat. The hairpins, chrome hairpins sticking out the back. I'm kind of digging that. Kind of like that. The barrel style springs, there's a lot more options. There's some pretty cool stuff out there. One company, Bare Knuckle Performance, Lowbrow carries them, just so you know. They make a barrel, or maybe you'd call it a beehive, because I think it's wider in the center. They make a different kind of spring. It's made of stainless steel. Appears to be a pretty good quality. I haven't seen one live. But what I really like about their spring is they grind the top and the bottom. So it's flat. I don't know why, a lot of spring makers just bring it around at the bottom, and that last coil is not lined up with the coil before, so you're not totally flat on the top and the bottom. I have those on the Sportster, and it causes some alignment issues, and I'm not in love with it. It works, but I can see that getting changed now that I know more about them. The other thing that's really cool is, who is it? Oh, Butt Seats. I saw that Butt Seats came out with a new spring that actually has a threaded insert, like a nutsert, mounted in one end of the spring. So you already have threads in one end of the spring, and it's ground flat. Very nice, very nice. Unfortunately, I'm not getting a lot of feedback from the company. I've asked, you know, what sizes you have, stuff like that. Not getting any answers, so I don't know. Must have too much business to bother answering me. But anyway, it is a nice spring. Looks really cool. Hairpins, pretty standard. I mean, yeah, they are what they are. Well, I shouldn't say that. That's what I used to think about barrel springs too. Maybe there are some different hairpins, and I'd sure like your feedback. If I'm missing something, tell me, hey, Bruce, you dumbass, have you looked at these? I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. So those are the options for the seat. Other than that, I think the seat's going to be pretty good. Alfred and I are talking about maybe making a carbon fiber seat, but keep that just between us. Don't tell anybody about that yet. And we'll see what happens there. Tim has some concerns that this seat pan might have a little too much bend to it. He's thinking this may not be super comfortable. I got to do some playing around and see what I think of this, and maybe Alfred and I, if we have time here, will jump in and make a carbon fiber deal. We'll see how that works out. But that's what I need from you, is I need your opinion. Barrel springs or hairpins. And they are going to be chrome. And you should know, in case you haven't caught on, you should know that Bruce likes chrome and polish. I am not a powder coat guy, and I am not a black guy. I am not a fan of blacked out engines. I own a touring bike that is blacked out. It's okay. I like it, but when I build, man, I like chrome. I don't know, maybe I just like seeing myself in the reflection. I don't know what it is, but I like a lot of chrome and polish. That's my deal. So they will be chrome or polished. How do you polish stainless steel? You could tell me that about the ones that are stainless. They look pretty ugly in the picture, but I'm pretty sure you can polish stainless up nicely. So that might influence my decision there. Wheels. I want to talk to you for a minute about wheels. I went 19-inch on the rear. Avon, what is this? A Speedmaster. It's a Mark II, whatever. Anyway, it's an Avon rear tire, retro kind of styling, retro tread, on a 19-inch rim. I wanted the biggest rim I could get on the back because I love spoked wheels. So I went 19 on the back, 21 on the front with an Avon tire on the front as well. And I can't remember off the top of my head what this guy is. And my vision just isn't as good as it used to be. Yeah, whatever. Oh, that's a Speedmaster. Okay, so the front's a Speedmaster. The back is a Mark II. Anyway, Avon, great tires, make really nice retro stuff. I wanted to go as skinny as I could. I love the skinny retro kind of styling. And of course the chrome spokes just, I mean, man, what can I say? They give me a chubby. I just love it. So that's the way we're going on the wheels. No front brake, which is pretty standard for, an old school type chopper. I think that's cool. On the back, we're going to go with a single disc, and that leads to another question that I have for you. On the back, I can go 11.5-inch disc, or I can go 10-inch disc. I'm going to mount the caliper, hopefully, mount the caliper in between the frame tubes. To me, that way it's least noticeable. It's kind of hidden between those tubes. If you start mounting it outside of there, it becomes really obvious and it's kind of stuck out there. I don't love it. So that's what I'm going to try and do with the caliper. But here's my question. XS650, this thing's not going to be real heavy. 10-inch disc enough? I'm going to run a Chrome Sportster, I'm going to run a Chrome Sportster master cylinder. I'm going to put in a Hurst roll control so I can hold the rear brake on at a stop without having my foot on the brake. And yeah, 10-inch or 11.5. Will 10-inch be enough stopping power? I think it will be, and there's a couple people who agree with me. But if a lot of you tell me, Bruce, you need 11.5 when all you have is a back brake, then I'm okay. I might change my mind. Well, I will change my mind. The other thing is, sorry, ran out of battery there. No problem. You've still got me here. The other thing is the pattern of the disc. What I'm thinking of, because this is kind of old school, and I love the look of the spokes, and I don't want to take away from that with some kind of fancy pattern on the disc and all that stuff. I'm thinking about just a solid disc on the back. So 10-inch solid disc is the way I'm leaning. If you think that's really wrong, if you're RKB or whoever, and you know that's not the way to go, please reach out to me. I would love to hear what you have to say. That kind of clears up the wheels and the seat. I got one or two more things I need to talk to you about. Back in a second. All right, well, I think we've covered just about everything. One last thing, I meant to mention this about tires. So I've always thought that white lettered or yellow lettered tire thing is really cool, and I see there's a bunch of companies that do it. So here's my question for all of you. Two questions. First off, what's the best way to do tire lettering? Is it to order those stickers? What would you do? Tell me about it. Educate me if you've done it, if you've ordered stuff, if you've tried the pen, whatever. Let me know what you think. It just seems like there's a whole bunch of options out there, and I want to do something that really works. I don't know. I've been looking at stuff. There's just different ways to go, and I need some help. The other thing is, would you letter these tires? The back one has a lot of space. I think it'd be kind of cool. However, the front one does not have a lot of space that doesn't have a ridge or something on it. It would have to be smaller lettering. I don't know if just doing the back would be cool and not do the front, or if this bike just doesn't need it. Kind of looking for ideas, suggestions, and your thoughts. That is it. That's all I had for you. I so much appreciate you being here. I don't know if I've told you lately, but I really appreciate you guys and gals. Love doing this. Hope it's worthwhile. If you like it, please subscribe. Leave me a comment. Let's talk more. Instagram at Speed and Color. Check us out over there. Build Stuff. I'm still trying to pound out the Build Stuff episodes. We're getting more and more out there, but hey, I'm a one-man band. What can I tell you? I got to do it all, editing and everything else. So sometimes I get a little bit behind, but I do appreciate you. Hope you're getting something out of this. Hey, build safe, ride safe, be cool. We'll see you soon.